Have you ever walked through a city of turquoise stone, where the walls seem to weep with memory? Have you ever felt the hush of history beneath your feet, where each breath of wind carries not dust, but names long erased by time? There is a place like that, where silence breathes through domes older than kings, and the sky lowers itself in reverence. Samarkand. By day it glows like lapis under a desert sun, but by night, oh by night, the stars bend close to listen, and the domes, blue as drowned sorrow, shimmer like the skin of serpents beneath moonlight. In that city there is a woman who has walked the same path every dusk for over 40 years. Her name is lost to most now, though the children call her Bibi Savid, grandmother of the White Veil. Each evening, as the sky darkens and the call to prayer rises over the rooftops like incense, she climbs the worn stone steps of Hy-Brasil, the living king's necropolis. And there, under the tiled dome of deep blue, she kneels before a sealed tomb. She does not cry, her eyes no longer make tears, but she speaks softly to the stone. "My son," she whispers, "did the desert take you, or did something older take you from the desert?" No one knows whose bones rest inside that tomb. The inscription has long since vanished, eaten by sand, cracked by heat. Some say it belonged to a saint. Others say to a cursed prince, who fled his fate. But Bibi Save believes it held her son once, or perhaps still does. And though her voice is nearly lost to the wind, something beneath the stone hears her. Not a saint, not a man, but a Djinn, bound there by a seal of obsidian glass. Trapped not in chains but in story, a story that refuses to end. He has no name now. Long ago he was called Cathar, which means vision or phantom. He once flew between worlds, stitched from flame and memory. But he has not moved in centuries, not since the calligrapher died. The calligrapher who once owned him was a man of ink and silence, who did not wish for power or glory. He only wished to write the names of the divine so perfectly that they could not be forgotten, and the Djinn helped him. With every swirl of the reed pen, Cathar whispered forgotten vowels, the true breaths of creation. For 60 years, they worked, and then, as all men do, the calligrapher died. He left no heir, no disciple, no command, only the final page, a single word, never spoken, never finished. And so the Djinn remained, sealed within the dome, his essence braided into the very blue tiles. The curse was not cruel, only unfinished. He was not punished. He was simply left waiting for someone to speak the last word. Now in this century of smoke and forgetting, only Bibi Save still speaks to him, though she does not know it is him who listens. Each night, she offers him her sorrow, like a prayer. Each night, he whispers to the dust, trying to shape the last letter, but the shape eludes him. The silence is too thick now. And then, one evening, the veil parts. It begins not with thunder, but with breath. That evening, Bibi Save does not speak. She only places her hand on the stone, and in the stillness her heart, weak, old, and quiet, lets go. Her final breath curls like smoke into the dome. The Djinn feels it, a soul released in peace. And suddenly, he knows the final letter. Not a word of fire, not a word of command, a word of release. He shapes it in silence across the echoing years, and the seal upon the stone shudders. A single tile cracks. Blue dust rains softly to the floor, and the tomb exhales. Not loudly, only like a hush that has waited too long. From that breath, a door opens beneath the dome. Not a door of wood or iron, but a veil of air that parts like mist in moonlight. And from that opening, the Djinn steps, not as a beast, nor a flame, but as a shimmer, a shadow between worlds. He does not rise into the sky. He bows his head. For the first time in centuries, he is free, and he does not rage. He weeps. One tear falls to the stone, and where it lands, a flower blooms, impossible, faint, made of wind, a blossom of blue smoke and prayer. And the Djinn, nameless once more, walks down the steps of Shai Zinda. The stars watch him pass. They do not speak. In the morning, a young caretaker finds the old woman lying peacefully by the tomb. In her hand is a small tile, once part of the dome. It bears no writing, only a shimmer. She is buried with honor. No one claims her, but those who pass the tomb now pause. They say the dome hums gently at dusk. They say the prayers echo more sweetly there. And sometimes, if the air is still, the scent of something forgotten, saffron, ink, or desert rain, drifts through the arches. Some believe it is the wind. Some believe it is the calligrapher's soul. But others, the old ones, the hush speakers, they know it is Kayal, and he remembers. He walks still, between breath and silence, between dome and dust, no longer bound, only watching, only waiting. For those who still whisper forgotten names to stone, but the mists hold another tale. Have you ever stood in the middle of a desert and heard a sound that should not be there? A soft bell, swinging where no wind moves, a hush that feels watched, and the taste of copper on your tongue. Not from blood, but from memory. Beyond Samarkand, past the domes and towers, far past the city's end, the earth stretches into the endless hush of the Kizil-Kum desert. Here, once, a caravan passed beneath stars bright enough to blind, and here, it vanished. They say it was the largest caravan of its age, 50 camels, heavy with silk and saffron, mirrors and scrolls, lapis stones from Badakhshan. Men of many tongues walked beside them. Persian, Uyghur, Kashmiri, Arab. They followed the ancient trail that curved between the twin oasis cities of Bukhara and Merv. But halfway through the journey, somewhere near the place where the sand begins to sing, they disappeared. Not one man, not one beast, not one crate or coin remained. Only a bell, a single bronze caravan bell, still warm to the touch, hanging from a dead tamarisk tree, swaying gently. Though the air was still, the tree itself should not have stood there. No roots run so deep in that salt-burned place, and yet it did. It stood for another 100 years. No birds landed on it. No shadow touched it at noon. Eventually monks from a desert monastery came to cut it down and found the bell still hanging. They took it and hid it in the cellar below their chapel, sealing it in a copper box. And they swore, an oath, never to ring it again. For the night it was first removed, 5 monks dreamed the same dream, of voices whispering in a tongue no man knew, and their own names being called one by one. Centuries passed. The monastery grew quiet, then crumbled. But the bell remained, passed from hand to hand, finally sealed away in a dark storeroom beneath a silk merchant's home in Bukhara. No one touched it anymore, except a boy. His name was Miran. He had dark eyes, sharp and serious, and a quiet sadness he never spoke of. He lived above the cellar with his uncle, a cloth trader, who rarely smiled and never listened. Miran had a sister, Shidi, whose laughter used to echo through the courtyard like bird song, but she had vanished. 3 years ago, lost in the desert, with a caravan no one could trace. They said it was bandits, or wolves, or heat madness. But Miran had read the old records. He had found the name of the road. He had found the story of the bell. And one night, when the moon was hidden behind dust clouds and even the dogs in the alley were silent, he crept down the steps. He knew where the bell was kept, knew the whispers that surrounded it. But still, he opened the box. It did not shine. Its surface was dark, tarnished, and pitted with age. But it was warm. He touched it, and something ancient stirred. The cellar grew colder, though the air did not move. The shadows thickened behind the hanging rugs. And though no one breathed but him, the room began to listen. He lifted the bell, and he rang it. A single chime. Soft, golden, infinite. It echoed as if the stone walls held no resistance, as if the bell had rung through the bones of the world. Miran froze. The echo faded. Then, silence. Then a whisper. Not a voice in the room, but one that arrived inside his chest, inside the bowl of his ribs, as if memory had taken form. It said, Miran, and again, Miran. But it did not sound like his sister. It sounded like himself, spoken by someone far away, as if another Maran stood out in the desert, calling back across time. Then another voice, a woman's voice, but broken, like cloth torn in wind. Come to the tree. The bell waits. The gate is open. Then, silence. He did not sleep that night, and in the morning he ran, not toward the city, toward the dunes. The road he followed had no name anymore, but it followed a path the sun still remembered. He walked for a day, then another. He drank little, slept less, and on the third night, under a moon, the color of bone, he saw the tree. It stood exactly as described in the oldest scrolls. Dead, twisted, rootless, and again, impossibly, the bell swayed. It called not to his ears, but to his breath, to his marrow. He stepped forward. Shadi, he asked the wind. No answer. He took one more step, and then the earth gave way. Not a trap, not a pit, but a fold, as if the ground had opened not downward, but inward, and he fell through warmth, fell through scent of myrrh, salt, dried roses, old skin, fell until he did not fall, and then he stood, not in sand, not in sky, in a market, lit by no sun, filled with no people, only shadows, walking, figures with no eyes, no mouths, only outlines, wrapped in old cloth and silence. They moved slowly, endlessly, between stalls of nothing. And there, beside one such stall, stood his sister, or something wearing her face. She looked at him, but did not smile. Her eyes were wide, but not alive. Mirhaban, she said, but her lips did not move, and in that moment he understood. This place was not a prison. It was a memory, a looping echo of all those taken by the bell, their stories, suspended. He ran to her. She did not resist, but when he touched her, his hand passed through, like wind, through water, and behind her, he saw them. The rest, the vanished. Caravan guards, dancers, scribes, priests, each of them living out a single moment, folding cloth, writing a word, stirring tea, and repeating it, again and again. He looked down at his hands, and they were fading. The bell had not summoned him to save her. It had summoned him to replace her. That was its curse. Each time it rang, the desert took another, and offered one release, one for one. He turned back toward Shady. She blinked. A single tear slid down her cheek, not of salt, but of light. He knew what to do. He whispered her name, not aloud, with his breath, and he stepped into her place. She gasped, as if waking from a deep, cold dream. The space around her shimmered, then collapsed, and she was gone, outside, awake, back in the world. And Miran remained. In the old city, a girl woke in a courtyard where birds sang. She remembered nothing, only her name, and a faint chime in her ears. In the desert, the tree still stands, though no one planted it, and below it, the bell still waits, unrung, for now. But they say, when the sky turns pale with morning light, if you walk far enough you can hear it, a single bell, sway, calling your name. Have you ever followed a lantern's glow down a path that never seems to end? Have you ever wondered if the flickering light ahead is leading you home, or away from it forever? There are roads in the mountains beyond Tashkent that do not appear on maps. They twist through cedar groves, disappear into cloud, and reappear only for those who walk in silence. They are not meant for merchants anymore, but there is one who still travels them. He comes only by twilight, his cart creaking softly behind him. The wheels never leave tracks. His robe is ash gray. His hands are gloved in dusk. No one remembers his face. They call him the Lantern Man. Some say he is blind. Others say he is fire, made flesh. But all agree. He does not ask for coin, only memories. In his wooden cart sit rows and rows of glass lanterns. Blue, green, amber, rose, each one glowing faintly from within, as if lit by a breath too soft to be seen. But the light inside each lantern does not flicker. It pulses, like a heartbeat, like a voice whispering just beneath hearing. The children in the high villages are warned. Do not follow the Lantern Man. Do not meet his eyes. Do not speak your name. But stories are honey to sorrow, and there is always someone who follows. Her name was Tamina. She lived in a cold house at the edge of the orchard groves. She had once had a husband, a singer. His voice could hush a river. But one winter, he went walking through the pass and did not return. No one found his body. Only his flute, frozen beside a prayer stone. The reed cracked clean through. For a year, Tamina kept his flute beside her pillow. She stopped singing. She stopped laughing. She stopped dreaming. Until the night of the lanterns. She saw them first from her window. Distant, soft. A trail of colors moving like stars fallen to the forest floor. She followed. Not quickly. Not in grief. Only in stillness. The cart creaked ahead of her, its lanterns pulsing like slow heartbeats. The merchant did not turn. He did not speak. But when she reached him, he held out a hand. And from it, a single lantern. Green glass, flecked with silver like frost. And inside, a light. Familiar. She touched it, and the world changed. She stood in a memory. Not a dream. Not a fantasy. A moment. Her husband sat beside a stream, tuning his flute. The grass was green with spring. She heard the exact rhythm of the water, the call of the swallows overhead. She could smell apricot blossoms. She tried to speak, but her voice did not pass the veil. She reached for him. He turned, smiled, and then, like a ribbon torn in wind, the image vanished. She stood once more beside the cart. The merchant had not moved, but the lantern in her hands had dimmed, as if part of its light had been used. She looked up at him. "I saw him," she said. The merchant did not reply. She clutched the lantern. "Can I see him again?" He tilted his head, and then gestured to the cart. So many lanterns, so many lights, each one a memory, a moment, trapped, preserved, sold for grief. She understood then the price, not coin, not blood, but memory. Each visit into the lantern would cost something, some part of her past. The more she saw, the more she would forget. But Tamina smiled to see him again, even once. She would give all the years between now and then. So she walked beside the cart, and each night she chose another lantern. Amber, her wedding day. Blue, the night he sang under the plum tree. Clear, the last time they danced. And each morning she woke, knowing a little less. Her neighbor's name, the taste of apricot, the tune of her mother's lullaby. Gone. But in return, those moments were returned to her in perfect light. She did not care, until the night came when she could not remember her own name, and the merchant stopped the cart. They stood at the edge of a cliff, where the stars reflected in a lake so still it looked like glass. He handed her the final lantern. It did not glow. It burned, gold red, like the heart of a candle. Inside, not a memory, a choice. She touched it. She stood before a door, carved from cedar, ringed with script she could not read. Behind it she could hear his voice singing. She reached for the latch, but something within her paused. The song was not full. It was cracked, incomplete. She turned. Beside the door stood the merchant, and at his feet a basin of water, black as night. He gestured to it. She peered into the basin, and saw herself, worn, hollow-eyed, flickering like a dying flame. Not because she was dying, because she had no more left to forget. To open the door, she would have to give the last of herself, not her life, her being. She looked once more at the door, and her husband's song faded. She closed her eyes and let go of the lantern. It shattered silently. The world spun once more. She woke beside the lake. The cart was gone. In her hands, the flute, whole, warm. She raised it to her lips and played. She did not know the tune. She did not know her name, but the song remembered her. And in the far peaks, beneath the silver wind, the lantern merchant walked on, glass glowing, steps silent, carrying the moments others could not bear to forget. They say he still walks. Some see him on the eve of winter, near the orchard groves. Others say he passes only those who have wept in silence for more than a year. But all agree, when he offers a lantern, you must choose with care, for memories once traded never return whole. But listen, there is yet another name, whispered in the wind. Have you ever touched fabric so fine it felt like woven moonlight? Have your fingers ever brushed silk and felt something staring back? Not from the cloth, but from the thread itself. In the ancient city of Cathar, walled with ochre bricks and shaded by narrow alleys of carved wood, there lived once a weaver who did not speak. Her name was Lale, though few knew it. They called her Poriduzanda, the fairy weaver, not because she looked otherworldly, but because her silks did not behave like cloth. They shimmered too much. They curled in the wind like they had breath, and when they were left alone in a room they shifted slightly, as if dreaming. No one ever saw her at market. Her silks appeared in the stalls at dawn, carefully folded and left in silence. Buyers would come, make an offering of coin or fruit, and the silks would be gone by morning. But the last tapestry she wove, no one ever bought. No one ever dared to wear it, because it whispered, not loudly, not with voice, but with knowing. It came folded in a wooden box, bound with black string. The box was left at the edge of a dried-up well, just beyond the city walls. A thief named Raman found it. He was not a cruel man, but he was restless. He had stolen many things in his short life: rings, knives, pouches, promises. But when he touched the silk, something inside him froze. It was unlike any fabric he had seen. Silver and shadow woven together, like smoke held in place by starlight. He unfolded it. It was not a robe, not a curtain, not a shawl. It was a map, not of lands, not of roads, but of a memory. The thread showed mountain ridges he did not recognize, circles that pulsed slightly when touched, a long black line that shimmered like a snake coiled in ink, and in the lower corner, a single symbol embroidered in crimson, a well with no bottom. Ramin, curious beyond reason, studied the map for 7 days. Each night, he dreamed of places he'd never been, tasted fruits he'd never known, heard voices whispering in languages that felt like echoes of his own. On the 8th night, he packed the tapestry in his satchel and followed the black line. It took him across low dunes, through olive groves older than cities, past a dried riverbed where no birds sang. On the 4th day he reached the place. The well, just like the embroidery, circular, smooth, rimmed with bone-white stone. It had no rope, no pulley, no cover, only depth. He peered in. No sound, no wind. Then he lowered the tapestry. It unraveled of its own accord, like it remembered how, and the further it fell, the more the well seemed to stretch. Then a pull, soft at first, then stronger. He gripped the stone rim, but the tapestry had wound around his wrist, tugging. He screamed. No one heard. The trees did not move, and then he fell. He awoke on a floor of silk, not cloth, but thread, A vast chamber stretched out before him, roofed in darkness, floored in woven light, and at its center, the weaver, Lily. She stood motionless, her hands glowing with thread that shimmered between her fingers. She was not young, not old. Her eyes were shut, but her mouth moved, whispering patterns into being. Around her, tapestries floated, suspended mid-air, showing faces, cities, stars, and wounds. He stepped forward. She did not react, but the threads shifted. Some reached toward him, others recoiled, and then one, dark blue, near black, curled around his ankle. Not as a rope, as a question. He felt it. The question was not, "Who are you?" but, "What have you done with what was given?" He knelt. He could not speak. And then she opened her eyes. They were full of thread. No white, no iris. Only spools of gold and silver, winding inwards without end. And in that gaze he saw it. The tapestry had never been a map. It had been a record of every stolen truth, every forgotten vow. She had woven the sins of those who passed her gate, not as punishment, but as remembrance. Raman dropped his satchel. He held out the tapestry. "I don't want it," he said. I didn't know." She stepped forward, took it, and held it to the lightless sky. It unfolded, but the thread was unraveling. His memory, his face, his name. He was being rewritten, not destroyed. Redrawn. He gasped, "Please." But she raised a single hand. The thread stopped. She pulled a single strand from the cloth, crimson, glimmering. From her fingers it became flame, and with it she touched his chest. A symbol burned there, the well, not as curse, as memory. "You will walk," she said, voiced the sound of wind through narrow halls, carrying silence. He nodded, and fell backward. He awoke beside the well, the tapestry gone. The map vanished. Only the mark remained. And no matter how far he walked, it never left his skin. Years passed. He stopped stealing. He spoke little, but he walked, always. And when he saw broken cloth, he repaired it. When he saw torn tents, he mended them. Not for coin, for silence. One night, an old woman passed him a folded cloth. He opened it. It was a patch of the tapestry, the silver smoke silk. He asked where she'd found it. She smiled. "She gave it to me," she said. "The weaver," she said, "it would remember me when I forget myself." And she walked away. Raman wept. They say the fairy weaver still lives, beneath the threads of the world, weaving the unspoken. Her tapestries are rare now, but if you find one folded under a stone, tucked into a market stall, drifting down a river, touch it only if you are ready to remember what you once stole. For her curse is not to punish, it is to show you what you are, and to never let you look away again. Yet beneath even this silence, something stirs. Have you ever looked into a mirror so still it showed not your face but your soul? Have you ever wondered if your reflection ever watched you back long after you turned away? In the center of the great Dashti Cathar, where the salt has devoured time and the earth shines like a pool of shattered stars, there lies a plain so flat, so white, so unbroken, that the sky cannot tell where it ends. Here, even the wind speaks in whispers, and those who dare cross its surface walk in the sky's reflection, their feet gliding over clouds, their shadows trailing behind like torn pages. There is a legend that once in every 100 years, when the moon is at her highest and the stars are sharp as bone, a caravan of mirrored camels appears. They do not speak, they do not trade. They walk across the salt as if crossing the skin of another world, and behind them, one less footprint than traveler. They are called the Mirror Caravan, and they never return with the same number they arrived. This is the story of a girl named Afsane. She was 16 when she saw the reflection move. She lived with her grandmother in the salt village of Varzan, where the houses are white as ghosts and the women wear black veils, even in sleep. The village was quiet, so quiet that dreams echoed in the walls. Her parents had vanished years ago on a journey through the salt flats, following a dream of hidden treasure whispered to them by a dying wanderer. All that was ever found was a cracked mirror, wrapped in cloth, buried in a sand drift. They gave it to her as a child, and she had never looked into it, not until the night of the caravan. It began with sound, not footsteps, not hooves, ringing, soft, crystalline, like water in a glass bowl. Then, light, not bright, not sharp, just bending. The salt outside her window began to shimmer as if brushed by starlight. And then she saw them. The camels were not beasts. They were reflections, perfect and wrong. Their bodies shimmered like mirrors, but their eyes were black pools too deep for thought. Behind them, men and women walked, silent, barefoot, their faces emotionless, but their eyes wide with knowing, and at the rear, a figure cloaked in salt dust. A mirror hung from their neck. It did not reflect the sky. It reflected fire. Usena could not look away. And then, the mirror around her own neck, the one she had never dared touch, hummed. She picked it up. The glass was cracked, but it pulsed. And in its fractured face, she saw a flicker of her mother's eye. That was enough. She left her room, left the village, walked barefoot into the salt. The caravan did not stop for her. It never stopped. She walked beside it. The air grew colder. The stars above and below merged, and her breath began to frost. She looked down. Her reflection walked behind her, but something was wrong. It did not blink when she did. It smiled when she frowned. It watched her, as if she were the one behind the glass. Then came the voice, not from the caravan, not from the air, from the mirror in her hand. It said, "Do you wish to find what was lost?" She nodded. The voice again. "Then you must see what was taken." And the world folded. She stood in a desert of mirrors, endless, stacked like plates, balanced like bones. Each one shimmered with a scene. A child crying, a man stealing, a woman burying a secret. She walked through them. The reflections did not show the past. They showed truth, not as remembered, as it was. Then she saw it, the one that called her. She stepped before the mirror and saw her mother, standing over a shallow grave. Arsena's father knelt beside her, weeping. They had found something, not gold, not treasure, but a box made of salt glass, sealed with wax. Inside, a mirror. They had broken it, and with its breaking, something had been released. A shape, a sound, a heat. It burned the desert, twisted time, bent their shadows, and they had been taken not by death but by reflection. Arsene stepped back. Another mirror lit up beside her. This one showed herself, not now, in the future. Eyes hollow, skin glazed, mouth whispering nonsense. She screamed, and the Djinn came. He was tall but not giant, clad in robes made of dust and silver thread. His face was hidden by a veil of smoke, but where he stepped, the salt boiled. He did not speak, only raised a hand, and the mirrors shattered, all but one, the one she still held. He touched it, and for a moment, she saw through his eyes. Every reflection, every lie, every stolen truth returned as pain. He was not a tormentor. He was a keeper of balance, of knowing, of cost. She dropped the mirror. "Take me," she said. "Let them go." The Djinn did not nod, but neither did he refuse. The salt rose like fog. The mirrors dissolved, and her shadow detached from her feet. It stood beside her and walked away, not into the sky, into the mirror, and she remained. But now, without a shadow, without weight, she turned and saw the caravan continuing. But one footprint was left behind. Not hers. Hers was no longer cast in salt, but his. The Djinn walked beside her now, no longer cloaked, no longer veiled, and he spoke. You have seen what was broken. You have paid what was due. Now you carry the mirror for others. She looked at her hands. The cracked mirror was gone, but in her eyes, its reflection remained. She blinked, and the stars beneath her feet lit a new path. They say a girl now walks the salt flats alone. She never casts a shadow. She listens more than she speaks, and those who speak to her sometimes forget what they were about to say. But if you ask her to show you the mirror, she will, and in it, you will not see your face. You will see your truth. What you've hidden, what you've lost, what still waits to be paid. And if you're brave enough to ask the right question, she might answer it. But be warned, the mirror never lies. Have you ever heard a sound so ancient it spoke before language? A sound not made by hands or tools, but by the world itself. There is a mountain in the north of Sumatra, forgotten by maps, hidden by clouds that taste like ash and honey. The locals do not name it. They call it only Gunung Terakia, the last mountain. It is always warm there, even in storms, even in silence, especially in silence. For silence is a lie here. The mountain hums. It beats, as if a giant heart is buried within, or something older, something drumming. And when the rhythm stops, even for a moment, the villagers fall to their knees weeping, because the world, they say, has forgotten to breathe. This is the story of a boy who followed the heartbeat to its source, and learned why the earth sings. His name was Ramlan. Ramlan was born without a voice, not mute, not ill, but when he cried, no one heard it. When he screamed, the jungle didn't flinch. Even birds ignored him. He grew up in a village wrapped in prayer cloth and volcanic dust. They pitied him, but they also feared him. For it was said that those who cannot make sound can sometimes receive it instead. His grandmother, who raised him, whispered, "You will not speak, Anak, but one day you will echo." And one day he did. It began with a tremor, not in the earth, in the air. A low, slow rhythm, like a drum in the belly of a cave. Dum, dum, dum. No one else heard it, but Ramalan did. It pulsed in his bones, in his breath, in his teeth. He followed it, left the village, climbed the mountain, alone. The air grew thick with ash, not choking, warm, sweet, like old breath. He climbed for 7 days and 7 nights, drinking only mist, eating only silence. But the beat grew louder, more complex, not just dum-dum. Now, dum-ta-ta-dum, as if something was speaking in rhythm. On the 8th night he reached the summit and saw it. Not a crater, not fire, but a circle of stones, massive, black, and veined with glowing threads. In their center, a drum. No hands played it. It played itself. Each beat cracked the mist. Each rhythm summoned a shape from steam. The Djinn of sound. He was neither man nor beast. His body shimmered like molten brass. His ears curved like horns, and his mouth stitched shut with threads of music. He did not speak, but Ramlan heard him. Not with ears, with everything. You are the vessel. You have arrived as was promised. Ramlan stepped into the circle. The beat stopped. The world held its breath. And then the mountain screamed. Not in rage, not in fear, in joy. Because at last, the new drummer had arrived. The Djinn showed him how. Not with lessons, not with words, with rhythm. Each beat a story, each sequence a key. 1 beat summoned rain, 2 opened memories, 3 stilled pain. Ramlan placed his hand on the drum. It was warm, alive. He struck once, and the wind halted. Twice, and the sky changed color. 3 times, and he saw. The mountain was no volcano. It was a wound, Once long ago, the earth had been injured, pierced by silence. The wound had to be kept open, singing, or else the silence would spread, and the world would forget itself. The drum was a suture of sound. The Djinn were its guardians, but they had grown old. Now it was Ramlan's turn. He drummed, day, night, in rhythm, without sleep, without hunger. He became the heartbeat, and the world listened. Villagers far below began to dream again. Children who stammered began to sing. Birds learned new calls. Even the dead, they say, began to murmur in their graves. But Ramlan did not return. He had no need, for he had become the voice of the mountain. And one day, the Djinn whispered again, "Now, you must drum the future." And Ramlan changed the rhythm. Not dum-dum, but dum-ta-dum-dum, ta-ta-dum. And the earth shifted. Not violently, not cruelly, but differently. The seasons bent. The stars adjusted. A new song began. One meant not just to heal, but to awaken. Even now, if you climb the hidden slopes of Gunung Terakia, you might hear it. A soft drumming, far below the ground, in the roots of trees, in the blood of birds, in your chest. And if you stop and listen, you'll find your breath matches it. Dum-ta-tum, ta-ta-dum. Because now, the mountain remembers your name, and your voice, no matter how small, becomes part of the rhythm, forever.